Tonight on Chat News at 5, heart-wrenching toll. Family members of those lost through suicide are speaking out to try and help others. And downtown crime. Residents are speaking out about what they see around them and the fact that they're in fear for their safety.
Plus, in sports, high school and junior high student athletes have been given the green light to play games.
From Medicine Hat, this is the Chat Evening News with Dan Reinish.
Good Friday evening. Thank you very much for watching. Families and friends in our community are still reeling over the loss of several young men over the last few months. Residents gathered at Riverside Veterans Memorial Park to remember lives lost during a candlelit vigil last night, all while raising awareness about suicide prevention and mental health. Chantal Wagner has more on the message that you matter and you are never alone.
Ashley Niwa describes her husband Brandon as her whole world.
His eyes and his smile, he was the best. He was hardworking. He loved hard. He played hard. He didn't struggle with addictions, but he did struggle with depression.
Ashley says Brandon's depression was on and off again, but as a team, they always got past it.
I never saw any reason. He never saw any reason. The family, friends never saw any reason. He never confessed anything to any of us that he was hurting or...
Brandon unexpectedly took his own life in May. Just 2 months later, in July, his friend Ryan Pancoast also killed himself. His wife Jordan says Ryan was a family man and a caring person who didn't want to burden anyone with his problems.
Ryan was amazing. He was the kindest, funniest guy. He would give the shirt off of his back. He was the first person, if you needed help, you could call Ryan and he would be there in a drop of a hat. He was an involved father. I didn't miss any of the kids' events. Coached hockey. Loving husband. We just adored him.
Ryan opened up to Jordan 3 years ago, and since then he was seeking help and tried many ways to battle his depression.
He could barely tell me. It was very difficult for him to open up to me as his spouse. So we just have to make that easier. It's absolutely heartbreaking for them to struggle in silence. And they just need to know that people are here and people care, and there are ways out of this situation that seems quite hopeless at the time.
Jordan says she doesn't know the courage it takes to open up and be extremely vulnerable.
I just have to say from my experience, when Ryan did open up to me, I wasn't scared, I wasn't embarrassed, I wasn't any of those things that I think he was worried about. I was honored that he chose me to open up to, and it was just like a fight. Like the fire was started, and I'm like, I'm gonna help you. We're gonna fix this, and we're gonna get you through.
One message from the two families is that there's always someone you can reach out to who cares, no matter the size of your own family or circle of friends. And they say it's vital to check in with the ones you love and care about.
There is not always signs and symptoms. There is not always an addiction behind it. And some people just carry the burden a lot more gracefully.
Jordan feels their stories are helping men realize that it's okay to open up about depression and mental health. She says it's a disease, and we need to do better at trying to support people who are struggling.
It doesn't make people weak to have it, and there's nothing that you did wrong. So I just want to get that out there, that it can also happen to, you know, people with a good circle of friends and family and things to live for.
But the pain for those here does not go away, and the toll is heart-wrenching.
I've lost 4 of my best friends in 2 months.
It's hard.
It's a game breaker, like it messes you up. I haven't been the same since Brandon.
And I think that we need to really focus on the survivors, because it's so devastating and your life is forever changed.
If you are struggling, the families plead to keep fighting, because whether you know it or not, you are so loved.
Just don't do it. Just hold on. Reach out. Go minute by minute. If all you can promise is minute, then you take it minute.
Chantel Wagner, Chat News.
The Canadian Mental Health Association says the conversation around suicide prevention and mental health needs to happen 365 days a year. Brianne Mellon, Suicide Prevention Program Coordinator, says we need to have conversations with friends and family just to see how they're doing. Yesterday at B Youth Centre, the CMHA connected with local kids during a rock painting activity. Mellon says the project gave messages of hope, wellness and resiliency for youth and the awareness that it's okay to talk about suicide and mental health.
We're starting to get more and more comfortable with mental health and suicide in our society. It's kind of been brought to the forefront, but we still have a little bit of work to do and a little ways to go. So that's kind of what we're working on right now, is breaking down more of those barriers and more of those walls, making sure that everybody knows that it's okay to talk about this kind of stuff.
If you or someone you know is in crisis right now, resources are available. The Alberta Mental Health Helpline can be reached at 1-877-303-2642. And always, in the case of an emergency, dial 911. All right, as I sat here this afternoon, I was thinking, will we get to 30? Will we get to 30? Potentially the last day of 30 degrees of the year. We got to 29 and a couple of points, but we didn't get to 30 today. Although maybe there's one day next week we might get to 30. Not the early days, but maybe. We'll see how it plays out. Right now, still 29 out there with the wind from the south at 17 kilometers an hour. We're heading for a great weekend, one that's not going to be as close to 30 as we got today. I'll paint the entire forecast picture for you coming up in just a few minutes here on Chat News at 5. Straight ahead, the annual Environmental Waste Roundup in Medicine Hat will take place tomorrow. During all the months we've been hearing about COVID-19, it has never really been explained how the virus works and affects our bodies. Alberta's top doctor shared some details about it today as she faced questions about why certain measures are in place. Dr. Dina Hinshaw says when someone is exposed to the virus, there is no way to predict if they will get sick and when. This is why close contacts of confirmed cases are required to stay home for up to 14 days. As for why school kids with mild symptoms can't go to class, Hinshaw says that's because the virus impacts everyone differently.
It's important to stay home even when sick with mild symptoms because the virus doesn't impact everyone the same way. In one person, the virus may make a large number of copies but only cause a runny nose or some other mild symptom. Yet when that same virus is passed to a grandparent, it could cause them to have a more serious illness like pneumonia. COVID-19 doesn't play favorites, and none of us are immune. We can all spread it to each other, which is why we are all in this together.
Dr. Hinshaw also announced today that choir practices can resume with strict rules, including masking. Audience singing and dance floors are still not allowed. Downtown area residents in Medicine Hat are fed up and speaking out following what they call a rash of drug activity and crime in their neighborhood. With more, here's Tiffany Goodwin.
I'm not comfortable letting my kids walk to a nearby park. I'm not comfortable when my kids walk home after their shifts at their work. There's something wrong with that. We live in Medicine Hat, Alberta.
Downtown homeowners too afraid to show their face for fear of their own safety.
It's sad because this downtown core is such an amazing place to be and to live, and lots of us have chosen it because we do love it. And I don't know if you can hear in the background, the screaming has already started. It's how early in the morning, and this is already going on.
Residents say they've seen everything from crime to shooting up, and now they're fed up.
We're seeing overdoses, we're seeing graffiti, needles in different areas. There's an inflooding of people prowling around the area.
Their property values have also taken a huge hit, and now they're feeling stuck.
The value of our home has probably been cut in half. You know, you reach an age where you start thinking about retirement, and you can't.
But it wasn't always like this. Residents say things started to deteriorate nearly 3 years ago when the province took over the Toronto Street Apartments to operate social housing through the Medicine Hat Community Housing Society. There's also a nuisance property nearby, which has since been shut down.
It's like they cover it up and pretend that everything's all fine and good. And, you know, somebody once said, "Are you good neighbors?" That really stuck to me because, you know what, let's ask them. Medicine Hat Housing Society, are you good neighbors?
I would say that it's our responsibility to make sure that people have a safe place to live, and that's all residents. Again, attributing drug use, increased needle debris, overdose, and increased criminal activity just to a property is, again, inaccurate. I think there's a lot of criminal activity that's going on in community, whether that's in the downtown core or in Crescent Heights.
The Medicine Hat Police Service says despite the residents' complaints, calls at the supportive housing complex have remained low.
We've been to 31 calls there in the past 3 months, so about 10 calls a month, which is relatively low. The greater area, there's been more, but the stats aren't higher than normal. We get more calls to different areas of the city than we do there.
The police service also maintains they have a great relationship with the Housing Society.
It's strong. They have a board with community member groups. I'm actually on that board, and I think we bring up problems to them when they come up, and they're very quick to respond.
To address other issues in the downtown core, police have created a new downtown patrol unit that come October will add another 3 members to the area with the hopes of it bringing more peace of mind to the residents that call it home.
We want to feel safe again. We want to feel like the kids can go to a park. We want to be able to not hear screaming and yelling all the time or see overdoses.
Tiffany Goodwin, Chat News.
As we head into the weekend, an extreme fire risk continues across Cypress and 40 Mile counties, with fire bans continuing in both rural areas. Cypress County Deputy Fire Chief John McBain says the wet spring kept wildfires at bay, but those same conditions have led to an increase of grass growth across the prairie grass that has now died off, adding to the risk of bigger, more dangerous fires.
We usually see fire season could be as early as June right through the summer, but this year we were lucky we had lots of moisture, which increased our fuel load. Unfortunately now that's dried out and it's created a very high fire hazard.
Fire permits in the 2 local counties have been canceled, while use of fireworks is also restricted. Racing on the Trans-Canada Highway inside city limits is going to cost 2 male drivers. Police patrols saw the pair racing in the eastbound lanes of the Trans-Canada near Redcliffe around 1:30 this morning. One of the vehicles was clocked at 146 kilometers an hour. Both vehicles were stopped and the drivers will be charged. Roadside fines for speeding range from $78 to $474 and include demerits ranging from 2 to 6 points. Offenders going more than 50 kilometers an hour over the posted limit are required to make an automatic court appearance, where they could see substantial fines and a driver's license suspension. For at least a dozen years, the Samus Rotary Club has been holding an annual environmental waste roundup. Normally, it's held in the spring, but COVID-19 meant organizers had to push it into the fall this year. This year's event takes place tomorrow at the Medicine Hat exhibition at Stampede Grounds. It's also been expanded this time to include collection of old paint, household hazardous waste, used engine oil, and tires. They'll also accept old electronics, basically anything with a cord. There is an approved COVID plan in place, and organizer Brian Robinson asks that everybody attending follow all necessary protocols when dropping off their items.
When you come through with the material, you can just stay in your car and our volunteers will take it out of your trunk like we've done in the past. If you want to take it out of your own vehicle, the difference will be is that we'll ask you to just put it on the asphalt behind your car or truck, and then you'll leave and our volunteers will handle it.
The event runs tomorrow from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. once again at the Stampede Grounds. Much more news still to come here on Chat News at 5. Scott Roblin has sports coming up later in the show as the Raptors go into Game 7 against the Celtics. I'll have your AccuWeather forecast when we come back, and this story as well. Coming up, with a need to use screens for school and play, some advice on how to protect young eyes from digital strain. The Prime Minister was forced to weigh in on the WE charity once again today, his first public appearance since the organization announced Wednesday it's shuttering its Canadian operations. But the man criticized for being too close to WE was very careful to keep his distance. The Prime Minister was asked whether he took any responsibility for WE's closure. His answer was long, 1 minute and 42 seconds long, and in that time he never mentioned the organization's name once. Full details coming up in about 15 minutes here on Chat News at 5. Officials have long warned of the dangers of spending too much time staring at our phones and computer screens. But with learning continuing online in many homes, how can young eyes be protected from digital strain? Laurel Gregory has some advice.
This year, Molly Dale is getting her grade 5 education virtually.
We just weren't comfortable going back to school. We have a few members of our household who are immunocompromised, and we didn't want to risk exposing anybody to anything.
Now, when I think about going to the day home and doing my online school, I think, yay, I'm ready for this.
The decision means Molly will spend 2 to 3 hours a day on a screen.
We're trying really hard to balance the amount of time she's on the screen with some book work that she can do.
While the number of hours spent on screens will depend on a child's age and the specific program they're taking this school year, optometrists want parents to get ahead of the risks.
It's not really a natural thing to be focused on something for, 6 to 8 hours a day.
This optometrist points out the problems of prolonged focusing on screens, such as eye strain, exposure to blue light, which can affect sleep, and dryness.
Blink rate statistically drops by about 50%. Typically, we blink about 12 times per minute. That can drop to about 5 to 6 times a minute. Which is going to obviously lead to the dry eye symptoms that we have in the evenings.
He recommends the 20-20-20 rule. Children cast their eyes 20 feet away for 20 seconds every 20 minutes. He also suggests students use built-in technology that can limit blue light exposure and
find fun activities, ideally outdoors, where the eyes are nice and relaxed, where we can have fun away from the screen. So that's where you have to get creative.
Getting creative. 6 months into this pandemic, that's something Molly's family and many others are getting top grades in. Laurel Gregory, Global News.
Chat Weather, brought to you by Design Flooring Center, with you every step of the way.
Chat Weather, powered by AccuWeather.
Gorgeous, 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 gorgeous Friday in Medicine Hat. Hope you had a chance to get outside today as we head into a weekend of temperatures above seasonal averages, which at this time of year right now is about 20 degrees. So, yeah, we're going to be above seasonal average over the weekend. I don't know why I got out of the way. The number's right there. Dan, it's right there. You do this every night, buddy. So 30 degrees is what we got to today. Yes, we did make it. In fact, at the last minute, we pushed it up over 29.5, which makes it 30. So there we go. Normally it's 20, and we're at 30 right now, technically. I'm going to say technically, but it's there. We're there. You round up, right? Right? South-southwest westerly wind of about 11 clicks an hour. It's not going to be that strong over the weekend. Sustained around 20, which is good. Temperatures, though, won't be sustained around 30, although Brooks got to 30 as well today. Bow Island 29, Drumheller also 29, and Calgary 28, as well as Lethbridge. But poor Edmonton. Well, poor Edmonton anyway, but 19 degrees today. They certainly didn't get up to the 30 like the rest of us did. But in Saskatchewan, they enjoyed the warmth too after that Arctic air we had earlier this week went away. 30 in Saskatoon right now. 28 degrees in Swift Current and Maple Creek, Leader 29 in Regina 27. Clouds, you want clouds? Only Edmonton has clouds, which is why they're 19 degrees. Clouds, clouds, clouds. And once we get to the futurecast, Edmonton's going to continue to have to deal with some precipitation as a few more systems pop in. There's another one that's going to affect central Saskatchewan and Calgary. That could even sink as low as Brooks over the weekend. But primarily, we're going to have high pressure. And as you see in the 7-day forecast, that's going to stick around until at least Monday or Tuesday. Now, in Brooks, tomorrow, like I said, it might sink down, so you might have to deal with some showers tomorrow night. Still 20 degrees start your day, lots of sunshine throughout the afternoon, potentially some showers in Leader as well as that system sinks. 16 degrees, a little bit cooler tomorrow, but as we get closer to home, 21 degrees under a mainly sunny sky in Maple Creek tomorrow, and here in Medicine Hat, we're going to drop about 8 or 9 degrees. That'll probably get closer to 22 or 23 by the time the day goes on. So cooler tomorrow than today, but we probably are not going to have to deal with any precipitation at all. Stay ready right there because I'll have your 7-day forecast coming up. But right now, Vicky sent in this fantastic picture and she explained this beautiful picture was taken by my friend Barry Steyer. It's on King Arthur Lake by Vauxhall. And so that's why, although Vicky sent it in, we give credit to Barry. Now, pause the show right now. Pause it and take a look close at this picture. The way that the clouds are meshing into the tree and the sun is meshing into the water. And that's just beautiful work, Barry. Thank you very much. Vicky, thank you very much for sending it in. And we received some incredible pictures this week. I wish we could use them all. We got one today of just the blue sky with no clouds in it. Weather pics at chatnewstoday.ca. Weather pics at chatnewstoday.ca is where you can send your pictures, and maybe I'll be talking about your photo on Monday. Have a great weekend. Stay right there. We still have more news, sports, and weather to come here on Chat News at 5. Still to come, the Alberta government is forging ahead with its plans to reduce surgical wait times. You're watching Chat News at 5. Good evening, I'm Dan Reinish. The UCP government says it is forging ahead with its plans to dramatically reduce surgical wait times in our province, and that will include more private delivery. The goal is to increase the number of surgeries by 50% before 2023. Health Minister Tyler Shandro released the new healthcare strategy this morning. He says Alberta would be facing a backlog of up to 2 years for surgeries because of the pandemic, but the government plans to get surgeries back on track by creating new chartered surgical facilities while expanding the ones that are already existing in Alberta.
The system will ramp up to at least 125% of pre-pandemic volumes over the first quarter of 2021. We'll reassess as we go, and we'll be prepared to increase volumes to 150% if needed. We'll measure our progress against recommended wait times and keep volumes at the levels needed to reach our goal of 2023.
Minister Shandro says increasing publicly funded surgeries will leave hospital operating rooms available to perform more complex surgeries. Right now, there are 43 chartered surgical facilities in Alberta, meeting about 15% of provincial demand. The Prime Minister is weighing in on the We Charity controversy for the first time since the organization revealed it's closing its Canadian operations. Justin Trudeau has been criticized for being too close to We, but today he was very careful to keep his distance. Abigail Beeman reports.
The Prime Minister was asked whether he took any responsibility for We's closure. His answer was long, 1 minute and 42 seconds, but in that time he never mentioned the organization's name. Here's some of what he said.
We moved rapidly with a partner that we felt was able to actually deliver it. Obviously, the way it ended up working out was really unfortunate for everyone involved.
Especially for students, said the Prime Minister, since the program that could have been worth close to $1 billion never got off the ground. The deal fell apart amid a political firestorm after it emerged members of Justin Trudeau's family were paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in speaking fees for We events. While committees trying to investigate what happened are on hold with Parliament prorogued, the opposition is still pushing the issue. The NDP sent a new letter to the lobbying commissioner asking questions, including whether the Kielburger brothers themselves should have registered as lobbyists. Even though 18 other members of the organization did during the controversy, Mark and Craig Kielburger did not. The lobbying commissioner has opened a preliminary assessment in this case, but does not comment whether investigations are underway. The Prime Minister didn't offer any specific comment Friday about news We is shutting down operations in Canada.
As I said, I regret not having recused myself in the beginning because of the perception involved, but there was no conflict of interest here.
So a doubling down on previous messaging. Ultimately, the ethics commissioner will rule as to the question of conflict with an investigation still underway. Although Trudeau disagreed with the commissioner's findings the last time Mario Dion found the Prime Minister broke the rules over the SNC-Lavalin affair.
There's a new development tonight in the Raj Grewal scandal. The former Liberal MP has been charged with breach of trust and fraud. The RCMP alleged Grewal broke the law by failing to report millions of dollars in personal loans and that he used his political position to get those loans. Grewal has admitted he had a gambling addiction and racked up millions of dollars in debt. He claims the money came from friends and family and that he paid it all back. In 2018, Grewal left the Liberal caucus. He did not run for re-election in 2019. Canada Post is apologizing for printing a stamp that features the severed head of a John A. Macdonald statue that was pulled down by protesters in Montreal. The stamp was printed through a program Canada Post runs intended to help people celebrate birthdays or anniversaries. But a federal employee used the program as a means of protest and solidarity with those who pulled down the statue. As David Aiken tells us, this isn't the first time Canada Post has been pranked.
Most of us use stamps actually designed by Canada Post, like this legitimate Sir John A. Macdonald stamp. This is from 2015, marked the bicentennial of his birth. 1.5 million copies were printed up. But if you had a favorite photo and you wanted to put that on a sheet of 50 stamps, you could. It would only cost you about 120 bucks. But people have used that vanity program for political and social protest. Back in 2006, Frank Magazine did that, printed up a few stamps, one with a Disney character, another with someone wearing a Nazi uniform. And back in the late 70s, opponents of Pierre Elliott Trudeau distributed what are called overprint stamps. You can see the words Fuddle Duddle and RIP-PET that were overprinted on actual Canada Post stamps. Now, none of these are very valuable to collectors. You might find copies on eBay for a few bucks these days, but Canada Post takes this very seriously, and they are now reviewing their processes to make sure that no stamp with an inappropriate image ends up in your mailbox.
Today marks the 19th anniversary of the September 11th terror attacks. Nearly 3,000 innocent lives were lost, including 24 Canadians. Ceremonies were a little bit different this year because of COVID-19. In fact, a disagreement over health precautions resulted in 2 separate remembrances taking place in Lower Manhattan. More now from Nancy Chen.
The September 11th ceremony at the 9/11 Memorial in Lower Manhattan included moments of silence, but this year it did not include the traditional live reading of the victims' names because of coronavirus concerns. Instead, it was a recording of the names.
And my brother.
Some victims' family members who were upset by that decision set up their own ceremony nearby.
We knew that it was of the utmost importance that we read aloud the names of all 2,977 souls who perished 19 years ago today.
9/11 observances are also different this year at the Pentagon, where military leaders conducted the ceremony without victims' families in attendance.
We never forget those who were murdered by the terrorists.
And at the Flight 93 Memorial near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, the usual 90-minute ceremony was abbreviated. Here in New York, the fire commissioner strongly recommended firefighters skip 9/11 observances during the pandemic. The department lost 343 members that day. Firefighter Leonard Regaglia Sr., a member of Engine 54, was one of them. His 2 sons, Leonard Jr. and Anthony, are honoring him by following in his footsteps.
I have the honor and privilege of working in the same firehouse that he worked in, the same company. So it really means a lot to me. I always looked up to my dad and what he did. And then I think as I matured and as the time went on, year after year, it became more and more of something I wanted to do.
They say they think their father would be proud. Nancy Chen, CBS News, New York.
When we return here on Chat Television, it's a big night in sports leading into a big weekend, and Scott Roblin has some big news for student athletes in Alberta. That and much more coming up on Chat News at 5.
It's the 2 best words in sports, Game 7, as the Toronto Raptors will look for another magical night to stay alive. A full tee-up of tip-off is coming up in sports. Welcome back. Big news for student athletes across Alberta today as junior and senior high sports will be played this fall. The Alberta Schools Athletic Association and Alberta Health have approved mini leagues for the sports of football, volleyball, and cross-country running. A maximum of 50 players at a time will be able to participate in a given game. High schools will be able to travel within the South Zone, while middle schools can face other Medicine Hat area schools to get competitive games in.
I actually get to challenge myself and play against other people I've never actually played before. By playing against the same people, you learn what they can do and what they can't do, but by playing against different people, you actually know what they can do and what they can't.
The grade 9s in particular, their last year here, giving them a chance again to compete at a high level against other schools has had a real strong impact in the building.
KSAA and Alberta Health have been really open with us in saying what we're sending you today are the expectations today, and these things might change as their understanding of the virus or the level of virus in community changes.
Athletes are still being encouraged to limit the number of sport cohorts that they belong to. After a memorable double overtime win to stay alive on Wednesday, we will see if the Toronto Raptors can top that tonight. Game 7 from the NBA bubble to decide who will advance, the Raps or the Boston Celtics.
Kyle, 33 points fading away.
We'll see if Kyle Lowry can create some magic again, willing his team to victory in Game 6 with 33 points in 53 minutes of action. The 33-year-old veteran always shines brightest in Toronto's biggest moments and says despite not having a home crowd to lean on, the Raptors will be ready.
It's a different atmosphere, a different moment, I think. But it's still a Game 7, so, it's going to be different. Every game is different. Every situation is different. So, yeah, it's going to be, but it's a Game 7, and I'm sure they're going to come out ready to go, and we're going to come out ready to go.
It all comes down to this for the Raptors facing elimination once again against the Celtics. A berth in the Eastern Conference Finals is on the line tonight. Opening tip-off in what will be a must-see Game 7 is set for 7 o'clock. The NFL season kicked off its season, or the NFL rather kicked off its season last night, but the backdrop was about more than just football. For years, the league has wrestled with racial injustice and the freedom players have to express themselves. As Eric Sorensen tells us, confronting both America's racial divide and COVID-19 has put the NFL front and center again.
They stood together, opponents demonstrating common cause against racial injustice, led by the new face of the NFL, Super Bowl MVP Patrick Mahomes.
We wanted to show that we're unified as a league, and we're not going to let playing football distract us from what we're doing and making change in this world.
But the return of North America's richest sports enterprise showed the NFL still appears to be the most conflicted league in pro sports. When the national anthem played, the Kansas City Chiefs stood, but one player took a knee. The Houston Texans only came out after the anthem. And when both teams gathered for that moment of silence in midfield, there were some boos from the crowd. The players say their message of equality was for a bigger audience.
We wanted to use this big platform where we know millions of people are going to be watching.
As for the crowd, Kansas City is among the few teams allowing fans to attend, about a quarter of capacity. Spacing for tailgate parties, distancing in the stands, and the masks, all signs one more sport is taking on COVID-19.
It's a unique year, and we're all aware of it. We trust the protocol.
But taking on racial injustice remains a particular challenge in pro football. Most players are black, yet league executives and owners are overwhelmingly white.
Get that son of a off the field right now.
Prodded by President Donald Trump, the NFL for a long time shunned the movement started by quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who first took a knee to call attention to police brutality toward black people.
If I was George Floyd.
But in the wake of the death of George Floyd, pro athletes led by the NBA took a stand, postponing games to protest racial inequality. And as NFL players unified to take up the cause,
that anything is possible.
The league, with videos like this, seemed to recognize the need to get in step with its players and changing society.
Sports has been a big part of social change through the years.
I think the league acknowledged that it failed. They had to come out and essentially issue a mea culpa and try to be better this time around.
For many Americans, it's exciting just to have football again to distract from the pandemic. But finding a unified voice on racial equality is a game still in progress. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
To the ice now, and the Tampa Bay Lightning with a chance to take a 3-0 stranglehold on their series with the New York Islanders tonight. Tampa has been dominant this series, even without 2 of their best forwards. Lots of line juggling for the Bolts with the absence of Brayden Point and Alex Killorn. The latter is suspended for tonight's Game 3 for this hit on New York's Brock Nelson. Killorn received a 5 and a game on that play. Meanwhile, Point went awkwardly into the boards late in the first period on Wednesday. He tried to play through it in the second, but is listed as questionable for tonight. This also with captain Steven Stamkos on the mend, who has not played in these playoffs after undergoing surgery in March. Tampa dressed 11 forwards and 7 defensemen for Game 2, and head coach John Cooper says he wouldn't change a thing going into Game 3. He says it's all about the next man up, no matter who is in the lineup.
We've played without him before. And we've played out with multiple guys before, and so you just have to make sure that the team's not, our job is make sure they're not thinking, oh well, poor us, and I don't feel like we have a team like that. I think to get this far, everybody's pulling the rope in the same direction, and so I think if anything, our guys will dig their heels in the sand a little bit harder and push forward.
With a victory tonight, the Lightning would find themselves one win away from the Stanley Cup Finals, but don't count out the Isles, as they have been as scrappy as any teams in these playoffs. Puck drop goes at the top of the hour from Edmonton. Nearly 40 years ago, the son of immigrant parents hit the ice for the first time, falling in love with hockey. This week, he has been hailed by the NHL as a community hero, bringing the game in Alberta to new heights and new continents. Cami Kepke has more.
It's a hero's welcome for Dampy Brar.
Oh, it was crazy. That's so cool. One of the best coaches I've ever played with.
The Calgary hockey coach and former pro player has been honored as the winner of the NHL's 2020 Willie O'Ree Community Hero Award. Brar was a key part of bringing India's first ever women's hockey team to Canada to take part in WICFest. He also co-founded Apna Hockey, which supports South Asian and other ethnic players.
I was lost for words. Hockey brings way more, and sport in general brings way more to the table than just the game itself.
Brar is the first person on either side of his family to be born outside India. He'll never forget his parents' reaction when they learned he'd won such a prestigious award.
They've been supporting my hockey since I was 5, and they've been very inspirational and very giving people, and giving me the opportunity as immigrant parents to come to Canada from India and fall in love with the game, and then supporting myself and now their grandkids.
So proud. Since he's been my age, he's been working, been a leader. He's just been very amazing. He's been a very amazing father to me, and it's awesome.
Brar hopes to see Apna Hockey expand in the future, but he also has other projects in the works.
We're hoping to start some grassroots ball hockey program in India. We've been working with the Federation. I've been asked to help out with the program out of the U.S. to enhance the game in South America.
While he teaches training and skills, Brar says it's even more important to build good people. He credits the work of his fellow nominees, Alexandria Briggs-Blake and John Hofferman, and says the future of hockey is in good hands.
A lot of other people out there in the same category that do an amazing job, so hockey's in a good space right now.
Cami Kepke, Global Sports.
After an off-season that featured plenty of change on and off the ice, the Medicine Hat Cubs are back in the rink tomorrow. The Cubs will be holding a one-day identification camp at the Red Cliff Rectangle, looking for their next crop of rookies. Around 30 skaters have been confirmed for the camp, while the team has also named last year's captain Tavin Stadnicki as an assistant coach, joining fellow assistants Matt Knutson and Johnny Steer. Head coach and GM Randy Wong says they're recruiting heavily in their own backyard ahead of puck drop.
I'm not going to look as heavy into Calgary and other areas, central Alberta. There's teams up there for that, and I think my focus here is the southern Alberta kids tapping into Saskatchewan, and so I think opportunities there. I think anybody that's a late bloomer, anyone that wants that opportunity to play at a higher level, certainly the window is certainly wide open for them to come in and showcase what they've got.
And we have our final set at the Medicine Hat Mixed Doubles Open Tournament. Last night, the top 2 seeded teams each won their semifinals matches in straight sets. First seeds Calvin and Tracy Heller were able to defeat the third seeded duo of Coralie Riel and Jahan Marcos. They'll advance to face Boris Holland and Linda Norris in the championship finals after they claim victory against Sandy McIntosh and Imran Ahmed. Both the open and intermediate finals will be held tomorrow afternoon at the Medicine Hat Tennis Club. And it's really been a fantastic week, and really the top teams rising to the top of the pile should feature some pretty fantastic finals action tomorrow at the Tennis Club.
Yeah, good luck to everybody involved, a sport that we all love. Oh, I had to do it. I'm sorry, I had to do it. I'm trying to not talk about the Raptors.
Are you nervous? How are you feeling?
You know, I feel horrible. Like, I mean, if I'm reading a book and I can't wait to see how it ends, I'll just go to the end of the book. If I'm watching a movie like The Shawshank Redemption and I want to know how it ends, I will go to the end. But there's nothing I can do between now and 11 o'clock but just wait to see what happens. Watching or not watching the game, trying to fall asleep, very nervous. But I believe in the team, and even if they don't win, what a run.
What a great run, and what a fantastic team that they've shown over the past couple of years.
Yeah, let's go Raptors, please, come on. put me through more stress in another round. We'll be right back. When we return, as they remain closed due to the pandemic, a look at the future of live theater. You're watching Chat News at 5. Recapping today's top stories, families and friends in our community are still reeling over the loss of several young men in the last few months. Ashley Niwa describes her husband, Brandon, as her whole world. She says Brandon's depression was on and off again, but as a team, they always got past it. Brandon unexpectedly took his own life in May. Just 2 months later, in July, his friend Ryan Pancoast also killed himself. Ryan's wife, Jordan, says he was a family man and a caring person who didn't want to burden anyone with his problems. One message from the two families is that there's always someone you can reach out to who cares, no matter the size of your own family or circle of friends. If you or someone you know is in crisis, the Alberta Mental Health Helpline can be reached at 1-877-303-2642. And in the case of an emergency, dial 911. Downtown Medicine Hat area residents are fed up and speaking out following what they call a rash of drug activity and crime in their neighborhood. Some homeowners are even too afraid to show their face for fear of their own safety. They say they've seen everything from crime to shooting up. Their property values have also taken a huge hit, and now they're feeling stuck. The Medicine Hat Police Service says despite the residents' complaints, calls at the supportive housing complex have remained low. A new downtown patrol unit has been created that come October will add another 3 members to the area with the hopes of it bringing more peace of mind to residents. For more on these and other stories, visit our website. You'll find it at chatnewstoday.ca. Some forms of entertainment have been able to reopen for business even as the pandemic continues, but there are some that remain on hold, like live theater. They need packed houses to be profitable, but as Mike Drolet explains, it's not possible right now.
This is the heart of Canada's vibrant theatre scene. For 6 months, its old heartbeat has been missing. Live theatre, like sporting events and concerts, is all about the audience. If officials have begun planning for a reopening, theatre insiders aren't privy to them.
The only people that can answer that question are the public health officials.
That unknown is causing unease. In the UK, theatre legend Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber says the industry is on the precipice.
It's in my view, I think we are now at the point of no return, really.
Lloyd Webber has asked for a target date to reopen, but that hope is partly built on the dream they'll be able to fill every seat and not the 30% capacity Ralph Fiennes' one-man show in London is limited to.
I mean, these large shows can cost up to $1 million a week to put on, so you can't bring in that kind of income at only 30% of capacity. As it is, most shows are budgeted to break even at 80% capacity.
So what can be done? Can theater embrace the digital world? And does that even work with live performances? Everything right now is on hold, including the burgeoning career of actor Hannah Smart, who wrapped up touring as a cast member of We Will Rock You in February.
So I, for 6 months, lived out of a tour bus and toured everywhere from New York to LA, Texas. We did Toronto, Calgary. Like it was a dream come true. It was crazy.
The Calgary native had high hopes for the rest of the year. Now she's looking for a retail job until she can start auditioning again.
In January, February is kind of the main audition season in Toronto especially, and so it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like come 2021 to see if they can even do auditions in person.
So many what ifs need to be resolved before the curtain can rise again. Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
All right, thanks, Mike. Before we leave you tonight, let's jump into our 7-day forecast ahead of a weekend that will see things cool off after today. Down to the early 20s after 30 degrees today, and then a 2-4 on Monday. Lots of sunshine until we start to get to Tuesday, and then there's the possibility of some rain Tuesday into Wednesday and rain and drizzle Wednesday morning. But temperatures will stay in and around 20 through the late part of next week and through this weekend. So once we get back into the work and schooling things of next week, it'll get chilly again, and that's fine. Looks like a great weekend ahead. Try to enjoy it. I'm Dan Reinish. Thank you for choosing Chat tonight. We'll see you back here Monday at noon and 5 o'clock.